Some borders are born from war. Some are drawn by colonizers. And some are just plain stupid, like a house that belongs to two countries at once, or a town where walking to your neighbor's kitchen means crossing an international line. Or two islands, just a few kilometers apart, but separated by an entire day. So if you think borders are simple lines on a map, think again. Welcome to the most chaotic border in the world. In the towns of Baarle-Hertog and Baarle-Nassau, Belgium and the Netherlands aren't just neighbors. They're tangled together like spaghetti. This town isn't split in half. It's split into dozens of pieces, with tiny bits of Belgium inside the Netherlands and Dutch land inside those Belgian bits. It gets even weirder. Some houses have their front door in Belgium and their living room in the Netherlands. Shops put the flag of the country their entrance is in, just to avoid tax confusion. And if you move your door a few meters, you might technically change countries. This absurd patchwork dates back to medieval land deals that no one ever cleaned up. Instead of fixing it, they just made it work, with two mayors, two police forces, and even two sets of laws in one town. It's peaceful, it's functioning, but it makes zero sense on a map. Here's a border where you can see the future. Literally, between Alaska and Russia lie two tiny islands. Little Diomede, owned by the US, and Big Diomede, owned by Russia. They're only 3.8 kilometers apart. You could kayak between them in under an hour, if you weren't crossing a Cold War border. But the real twist? These two islands are split by the international date line. That means Big Diomede is 21 hours ahead of its smaller neighbor. Stand on the US side, look across the water, and you're looking at tomorrow. Locals call them Yesterday Island and Tomorrow Island. During winter, when the sea freezes, it's technically possible to walk from one to the other, crossing from America to Russia and from today into the next day. It's the closest the US and Russia come to touching, and yet they're a world apart, by time, by politics, and by an invisible line that makes everything feel surreal. In most towns, crossing the street is simple. In this one, it's international travel. Welcome to Derby Line, Vermont, and Stanstead, Quebec. A single town split clean down the middle by the US-Canada border. The border slices through homes, businesses, streets, even the toilet in one private house. And then there's the crown jewel, the Haskell Free Library and Opera House, a building that literally sits on the border. You enter from the US, browse books in Canada, and watch a show with your seat in one country and the stage in another. There's even a black line on the floor marking the international boundary. It sounds fun until you realize stepping over that line without reporting to customs is illegal. Locals used to cross freely for groceries or to visit neighbors. But after 9/11, things changed. Now the streets are patrolled. Cameras watch every corner, and crossing without permission can get you in trouble, even if it's just to borrow a cup of sugar. It's one town, two countries, and a border that splits everything except the community. Between Egypt and Sudan, two patches of land tell a bizarre story of colonial cartography gone wrong. Here's the short version. Egypt claims a border drawn in 1899. Sudan prefers the one from 1902, and because of that, both countries claim the Hala'ib Triangle, a valuable resource-rich area by the Red Sea. But here's the twist. Accepting the Hala'ib Triangle means giving up Tawil, and Tawil is just desert, no oil, no coast, no strategic value. So Egypt says, Hala'ib is ours, you keep Tawil. Sudan says the opposite. Result? Tawil belongs to no one. It's one of the only terra nullius left on Earth, land not claimed by any country. A few people have even tried to declare it a new nation, plant a flag, or become its king. No success, just sand. All because of two old British maps that don't agree. It looks like a geography glitch. Pull up a map of West Africa, and you'll see the Gambia, a narrow strip of land that snakes along a river, completely surrounded by Senegal, except for a sliver of coastline. Why is it shaped like that? Because of European colonial rivalry. The British controlled the Gambia River, which was great for trade. The French took the land around it, what became Senegal. Neither side wanted to back down, so they drew borders around their claims. The result? A country that's barely 30 miles wide, stretching like a worm inside another country. It's been a nightmare for travel and trade. Every road in and out of the Gambia has to cross Senegalese territory. At one point, relations got so bad, Senegal even closed the border, cutting Gambia off from the outside world. Some have suggested merging the two countries, but national identity runs deep, and the Gambia isn't giving up its independence. So the border stays, one of the strangest leftovers of colonial competition that still shapes a modern nation. This was once the most tangled border in the world. A border so messy it had villages inside villages, and even a village inside a village inside a village. Before 2015, India and Bangladesh shared over 160 enclaves. In a region called Cooch, Behar. These were tiny pockets of land, where Indian land was inside Bangladesh and vice versa. But some of those pockets had enclaves inside enclaves, a third layer of confusion. One famous case, an Indian village surrounded by Bangladeshi land, surrounded by Indian land, surrounded by Bangladesh again. Try explaining that to a GPS. People living there were caught in limbo. They couldn't easily access schools, hospitals, or even vote. To reach the country they belonged to, they often had to cross international borders illegally, every single day. The absurdity came from centuries-old land swaps between feudal lords, later frozen by politics. Finally, in 2015, both countries agreed to a historic land exchange, simplifying the map and giving people real citizenship. It took decades, but it cleaned up what might have been the most nonsensical border arrangement in modern history. It's one of the most heavily guarded places on Earth, and also one of the weirdest borders ever drawn. The Demilitarized Zone, or DMZ, separates North Korea and South Korea along the 38th parallel. But here's the irony. The Demilitarized Zone is surrounded by thousands of soldiers, tanks, landmines, and watchtowers. This line wasn't based on geography, culture, or population. It was drawn in 1953 after the Korean War ended in a ceasefire, not a peace treaty. So technically, the war never ended, and the DMZ became a frozen line of tension. In the middle is Panmunjom, a tiny village where peace talks happen. There, a blue conference building sits right on the border, with one half in the north, one in the south. Guards from both sides stare at each other, just meters apart, 24/7. Occasionally, tourists are allowed to visit, and yes, you can technically step into North Korea, if only for a few seconds. Despite the danger, the DMZ has become an accidental nature reserve, untouched by development for decades. A strip of land full of contradictions, peace, tension, and political theater, all wrapped in a border that divides a people, not just a place. Point Roberts looks like a glitch in Google Maps. It's part of the United States, but to get there you have to drive through Canada. This tiny American town is cut off from the rest of Washington state by the 49th parallel, the straight line border agreed upon by the US and Britain in the 1800s. When they drew that line, they didn't notice that it sliced off the southern tip of a peninsula just below Vancouver. That tip became Point Roberts. a U.S. exclave that's only reachable by land through British Columbia. For residents, that means crossing 2 international borders just to go to school, the grocery store, or the hospital. Kids take a daily 4-border school commute, U.S. to Canada, to U.S. and back again. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when the U.S.-Canada border closed, Point Roberts was essentially cut off. Supplies had to be ferried in by boat. It's a town that only exists because of a straight line drawn too carelessly. A geographical quirk that turned into a real-life headache. It's Russia, but not in Russia. Kaliningrad is a tiny Russian exclave on the Baltic Sea, squeezed between Poland and Lithuania, and completely cut off from the rest of Russia. How did it get there? It used to be the German city of Königsberg until the end of World War II, when the Soviets seized it and renamed it Kaliningrad. The German population was expelled, and Russia held on to it, even after the fall of the Soviet Union. Now it's a strange outpost of Russian territory in NATO's backyard, surrounded by EU countries, using the ruble and flying the Russian flag, but with no land connection to Moscow. Its location is more than awkward. It's strategic. Kaliningrad hosts a massive Russian military presence, including the Baltic Fleet and long-range missiles. In times of tension, it becomes one of the most militarized and closely watched examples in Europe. Kaliningrad is a Cold War relic that never thawed, a border left over that still shapes 21st century geopolitics. Most borders run through valleys, rivers, or fences. This one runs through the top of the world. At 8,848 meters, the summit of Mount Everest isn't just the highest point on Earth, it's also the international border between Nepal and China. Stand on the peak and you're in both countries at once. The south side belongs to Nepal. That's the route most climbers take, through the Khumbu icefall and up from base camp near Everest's iconic face. The north side lies in Tibet under Chinese control, with a much harsher, windier route. But things get political up there too. Even the height of Everest has been debated, with China originally claiming a lower measurement, excluding the snow cap, while Nepal included it. After years of back and forth, both countries finally agreed in 2020 on a shared number. And yet, climbers on either side still need different permits, different rules, and different flags, all for a mountain that doesn't care about borders. Up there, oxygen is scarce, temperatures are brutal, and yet, humanity still draws a line in the snow. One island, but 2 very different worlds. Welcome to Cyprus, where the island is split by a military buffer zone patrolled by the United Nations and frozen in a decades-old conflict. The southern part is the Republic of Cyprus, an internationally recognized country and a member of the EU. The north? It's the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, recognized by only one country in the world, Turkey. In 1974, after a coup backed by Greece, Turkey invaded the north, citing the protection of Turkish Cypriots. The island has been divided ever since by a 160-kilometer-long green line, slicing through towns, villages, and even the capital, Nicosia. Nicosia is the last divided capital city in Europe, with a border running straight down its center. You can walk across checkpoints, pass old barricades, and feel like you've entered another country, even though the world doesn't officially see it that way. It's a place where politics, history, and identity collide, and where one border has turned a small Mediterranean island into a symbol of stalled diplomacy. Many of Africa's borders are shockingly straight, cutting through tribes, cultures, and entire ethnic groups, like someone just drew lines on a map. Because that's exactly what happened. In 1884, during the Berlin Conference, European powers carved up Africa to avoid fighting each other, without ever setting foot in most of the places they claimed. They drew borders that ignored rivers, mountains, languages, and people, creating countries like Chad, Libya, and Algeria, with borders that stretched for hundreds of kilometers in perfect straight lines. The result? Communities were split apart. Rival groups were forced into the same artificial states, and even today, many of Africa's conflicts trace back to those arbitrary lines. The scars of colonial mapmaking still define borders that make no geographical or human sense. They weren't made for people. They were made for empires. Borders are meant to bring order, but as you've seen, some just bring confusion. If you enjoyed this journey through the world's weirdest borders, leave a like, subscribe for more, and let me know which one surprised you the most. Thanks for watching, and see you on the next map.